Hi, I'm Captain Larry Bell with Texas Fishing Tips, and this is your weekly fishing report.
Over here in the San Antonio shoreline, Cottonwood Bayou, all the way down to Panther Point, Panther Lake, all this area here. You know, the one thing that's happened this whole past week is we've had amazingly low tides. So these are wintertime tides that we have in effect. So you must approach this as we would be in the wintertime, with the exception of the fact that obviously the water's not cold. So, but your tactics are still going to be the same thing. You're going to attack guts, passes, pinch points, deeper water. Get on a flat that's adjacent to some of those areas. Some of these areas here that are pointing out here up and down the San Antonio shoreline all the way down to Panther. You have back lake mouths that are in these particular areas, drains, if you will, that you can access those. And they got deeper parts to those. The one thing that is becoming very apparent is that you need to be on your, specifically trout, you need to be on your trout bite extremely early right now. And we are heading toward a full moon. So one thing that you need to also take in consideration around that full moon is downsize your baits profile-wise, size-wise. Early morning, late evenings are going to be your prime time to really focus and try to target your particular fish that you're wanting to do, especially trout. Again, going back to what we were just talking about, early morning trout bite. The one thing that's happened a lot this past week, the trout bite has not lasted very long at all. It's been early, even in and around a major or minor that's been going on, and sometimes outside of that. Just the early morning bite. So if you can be on the water on the area that you're wanting to fish and you're throwing your baits and daylight's just starting to pop, then you're probably doing yourself a favor. Right now, by 10 o'clock, the trout bite is done, no matter where you're at, specifically for artificial people. You know, the ones that are throwing artificials all the time. So what I said last week, July and August are the two toughest months for us, just simply because it's a difficult time frame to throw that, and it's hard to make those fish want to eat that except around certain time frames. So when you take that stuff into consideration, you start stacking stuff in your favor again. Majors, minors, super early mornings. You're going to want to really target that time frame and just be prepared that by 9:30, 10 o'clock, you're going to lose your trout bite pretty quick. So if you haven't got your trout by that time frame, or even had opportunity to have your trout by that time frame, then you're probably not going to get them unless you're going to come back late evening. Now, stuff around the full moon. That moon's going to be setting early in the mornings. That's a great time, especially right now with the way everything is. You know, we've been in some water temps that's been hovering around 90, 91 in the afternoons, which makes fishing extremely difficult. So you're really going to have to find you some water that's cooler, some moving water, close to the ICW, or some areas that you're really going to want to target on something like that. So if you got like a little cut or a mouth that comes off the ICW and you got a little current that's pushing through there, and the water temps become a big part of trying to locate and find some fish. Bunch of shell bars, shell reefs, shell pads have all come into play this week. They've been productive, super productive, finding fish around those. Even later in the morning, even after that 9, 10 o'clock time frame, we're finding fish in those particular areas. Not a lot, but we are finding some. We'll pick up one here, pick up one there. So keep that in mind. If you're trying to fish for your trout, make sure you're targeting shell beds, shell pads, shell reefs, a little bit deeper water adjacent to a flat that's close to that, especially early morning time frame. Again, with the full moon that's coming, so we'll have a minor that'll be taking place early mornings and late evenings, and those will be prime time targets that you want to fish during that time frame if you're able to. Now, the baits that we've been using mostly, Double D has been really good. Marker 54 jerk shrimp's been wearing it out, man. Those suckers have been eating lots of shrimp, and it's been very productive bait. You know, the white one, the pink one, the brown, any of those, the jerk shrimp, forward or backward, free-lined it, underneath the popping cork, doesn't matter, but it's been super productive. Also, burner shad in a smaller version, twisted tea, chicken of the sea have been two of the good ones. White ice has been pretty good, depending on what your water clarity is and how dirty your water is, or how clean your water is, depending on where you're fishing at and what you're trying to target and where you're going to be. Top water bait, super early. If you're going to throw a topwater bait, man, you be throwing that thing when that sun's before it's even popping. It's still dark outside, and you're starting to see a little bit of daylight creep over the shoreline water. So make sure that if you're going to throw a topwater bait, you're going to throw it down that time frame, because after that sun starts to pop and it gets up a little bit, that's going to go away. So you're going to have to get down to where those fish are at. Again, 16th ounce jig heads is still throwing that. An occasional 1/8 ounce if we're going to fish deeper water, 5-6 foot of water. If you're going to get to a gut or something like that, those are going to be one of the things that you're going to want to target. So just take into consideration the stuff that we have going on to locate and where you're going to try to find your trout. Down here from Allen's Bight all the way up to the Mott, man, you've got a bunch of back lake mouths. You've got a nice drop that's out here, especially off the point here of Allen's Bight. This area specifically in here, you've got deeper water that's close to you. There's some great wading areas that are just off the point here. You can wade way out there, man. And a lot of these areas are holding some fish. They're just holding them in a little bit deeper water. Or again, early morning bite is the key time frame right now, specifically for trout. If you're not targeting the trout early mornings and you're just specifically looking for redfish, then you'll probably be okay getting out in the water a little later. But main thing that we're trying to locate right now is trout, and especially in the new slot range. Catching trout has not been an issue. What's been the issue is finding the right size trout. So we're having to go through a whole bunch of these suckers, a bunch of 14s and 15s and 16s, and catching those and chunking them back. A lot of fun, great bite and everything, but locating that 17 to 23 has been a little bit more of a challenge. Again, deeper water, deeper edges, guts, time frame for your majors and minors have been key, especially for throwing artificial, especially right now, again, when the full moon's fixing to take place. Downsize that bait. We've been throwing the burner shad. We've been throwing the original size as well. Nothing bigger than a 3.5 or 4 inch bait has been very productive right now, and that will continue to be a theme as we head toward this full moon as it continues to approach us. The Double D has been good, a little bit fatter profile bait. Lots of mullet in the system. Man, we've got so much mullet and bait working up and down here, so it's making it really difficult to make your bait stand out in and amongst all the live bait, but that can be done. That's the beauty of throwing artificials. It's a very big challenge, and it's very difficult to do, but when you have accomplished your goal of catching that fish with that artificial bait, you've done something. It's a lot of fun. Again, working these areas up and down here all the way to the Mott is key, is you want to get in some of these back lakes. Now, we've had super low tides. So the one thing that you really need to take in effect is watching what your time frames and when your tidal movement is going to happen. We've been having negative tides here now for 2 or 3 days, 4 days in a row now. So again, super low tides, you want to target guts, you want to target passes, deeper water early, and try to locate some fish that are hanging off these edges. Another thing that you can also do is you can work down like the ICW, work the deeper edges of that, throw in the jerk shrimp, marker 54. Again, marker 54 jerk shrimp has been money here the last week and a half to 2 weeks. It's been productive, very, very much so. And if you don't have those in your box, you need to get you some to throw, because they are eating those things up. Again, free line them or under popping cork, doesn't matter. Whatever you want to do. Work this area. All this hard packed sand, the shale that's around these areas. These are where these trout are starting to hang. You'll go through 15 or 20 of them, and you'll pull out a decent fish ever so often out of that. You just have to get through them. You have to get through them pretty quick. Again, the trout bite is done by 9:30, 10 o'clock in a lot of these areas. So if you're not getting them early, get ready to start targeting your redfish if you're not getting them at the same time as it is anyway, depending on where you're at. Again, the burner shad in the twisted tea, white eyes, chicken of the sea, magic grass. Some of this water, we've had some higher winds in the afternoons and evenings, so a little bit of chartreuse, white, or orange tail that's mixed in on some of those baits will help you with that for those fish to locate. Little Johns as well, another great bait for this particular time frame. So make sure that you're getting all these particular baits, and you can get those in use depending on what your water clarity is, what your bait's doing, where you're at. Again, the minors in the morning, the minors in the afternoon is going to be key time frame, or the minor in the evening with the full moon coming. So early morning bites, late evening bites are going to be your prime time targets to hit your fish and locate your fish, whether it be trout or redfish. All the reefs out here in Copano, big Copano reef that comes down here, that one's way out here, and you got little legs that come off of it, little fingers here, little fingers there. Work all these areas here. There's trout that are hanging out around these. Now, I haven't caught anything else around these when I have fished it, mainly trout. But again, early morning bite, super early morning bite is what you want to target this particular area or any of these reefs that are out here. So if you've got one of the newer updated GPSs or even the Google overlay on those newer GPSs or in whichever one you got, Garmin, Simrad, Lowrance, whatever it is, you can see those reefs that are out there. Even if you're not able to weight them, anchor up or drop your trolling motor if you have a spot lock feature that's on that particular trolling motor, and fish these deeper reefs early in the morning like that. It's a great opportunity to find some fish hanging out over top of some of these things, because they will. It's cooler water for them, which is key right now, because again, our water temps are starting out, mid 80s, 85, 86, and as most of you well know, we haven't had any rain or been underneath the high pressure for a while, so the afternoons are getting smoking hot. So is the water. So that sunshine just beaming down that water. So as you fish, if you're not able to fish mornings, you have to fish afternoons, and you're going to have to find some cooler water or some deeper water to locate some of these fish, unless you're just specifically targeting redfish, which redfish, they don't care too terribly much. You can locate them pretty good sometimes up there in the shorelines and edges in those types of places. But out here on the reefs, in these deeper reefs, the trout are hanging out around those. Again, if you got some bait that's present. Now, if you're not seeing it around some of the deeper reefs that you know where those are at, then more than likely that's okay. Fish it anyway. There'll be an opportunity more than likely around that, just because it's structure for those fish, and they love structure. Fishing down the shoreline as you go into North Pass and into Mission Bay, you got shale that's up here around these edges on both sides. So you want to fish those types of areas and get in here into Mission Bay, because there's a bunch of little shale pads and shale reefs that are in there when you got a higher tide. Of course, now there's lots of mud in here, so Mission Bay is a lot warmer than what it would be in the open bay. Now, if you get back to the back there where Copano Creek comes in that area back there, or Mission Creek comes in back there, should I say, that water's a little cooler that comes in through there, so that's another area that you may want to target. Get on that back shoreline. Now, you can wade that back there. Redfish back in that area, occasional flounder every once in a while, scattered trout that are back in those areas, just things that you need to be aware of back in there. Again, smaller profile bait with full moon coming, you need to make sure that you downsize that. Little John, burner shads, matrix shad, marker 54 jerk shrimp, the double D, all those are smaller baits, really productive baits, especially right now. Again, the marker 54 jerk shrimp has been very, very productive for us over the past week and a half. So make sure that you have one of those in your box to throw it to help yourself out. Working down the shoreline again here as you go toward Bayside, you got the reefs that are on this side. Those reefs are a little bit deeper. So again, make those be your target. Work out over the top of these things. If you don't find fish on one, move to the next one. Move to the next one until you locate where some fish are at, and you'll find some. There are some that are hanging out here off of these edges, the deeper edges of that. Again, with our tides fluctuating so much and having negative tides, these become another great spot, because it's a deeper part of the body of the water. So those fish have a tendency to want to pull off on some of these types of things and suspend over the top of those. So this would be a great opportunity here to throw you an 1/8 ounce or maybe probably a 1/4 ounce jig head, especially if you're fishing over 4 to 5 foot of water in there, just to make sure that bait gets down there to that reef, and you can just kind of bounce that thing off and around that and locate where those particular fish are at. Again, majors and minors, key things, especially for artificial people. July is going to be tough, as we've had not any rain for a long time. Our salinity levels are pretty high right now, so we do need some rain to kind of help balance that out, and that would help us out quite a bit. So again, make sure you're maximizing your fishing time on the water early or very late, and make sure that when this full moon takes an effect that you're hitting it early with smaller profile baits.
Thanks for watching. I'm Captain Larry Bell.